What if I told you that the version of history you learned in school, the grand sweeping narrative of empires rising and falling, was fundamentally incomplete? It's a solid framework, of course, covering the big names that everyone knows. We are taught about the architectural might of the Romans, their roads and aqueducts stretching across Europe. We learn of the philosophical and democratic foundations laid by the ancient Greeks in Athens. And of course we are all familiar with the Egyptians, whose pyramids and pharaohs have captured the popular imagination for centuries. These are the pillars of our historical understanding, the headline acts on the world stage, and their influence is undeniable. But history isn't just a collection of headline acts, it's a vast, intricate, and often messy tapestry, woven with countless threads. For every Roman Empire that left an indelible mark, there are other equally fascinating societies that have faded into the background, their stories becoming whispers, and their accomplishments relegated to footnotes if they're mentioned at all. These aren't minor footnotes either. We're talking about entire civilizations, cultures that flourished for centuries, built cities, developed unique technologies, and created breathtaking art, only to be almost completely erased from our collective memory. They existed in the shadows of the giants, or sometimes they, the giants of their time and place, and yet, we've forgotten them. Today we're pulling back the curtain on some of these lost chapters. We are embarking on a journey to the forgotten corners of our own past, to shine a light on societies that were once powerful, innovative, and thriving. These are civilizations that challenge our very understanding of how the ancient world worked. We'll investigate a kingdom in Africa, so powerful, it was considered one of the four great powers of its time. Relative unknown. We will then travel to ancient China, to uncover a society so distinct, so alien in its artistic expression, that its discovery completely rewrote the history of the region, leaving archaeologists with more questions than answers. These aren't just historical curiosities. They are crucial missing pieces of the human story. They represent alternative paths of development, unique solutions to the challenges of civilization, and artistic traditions that defy easy categorization. They are the powerful, brilliant, and sophisticated civilizations that our textbooks, for one reason or another, simply forgot to mention. So, if you believe you have a firm grasp on ancient history, prepare to have that foundation shaken. The stories we are about to uncover prove that the past is far stranger and far more crowded than you ever imagined. In the highlands of what is now modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea, a formidable power once rose to dominate the trade routes connecting the Roman Empire with ancient India. This was the kingdom of Aksum. Forgetting Aksum is like forgetting a major player in a global game of chess. It was, by all contemporary accounts, a civilization of the first rank. In fact, a 3rd century Persian philosopher went so far as to name Aksum as one of the 4 greatest empires in the world, placing it in the same league as Rome, Persia, and China. That is an astonishing testament to its influence and power, a status that has been almost entirely lost to popular historical knowledge. Aksum's prosperity was built on trade, specifically its strategic control over the Red Sea. From its bustling port city of Adulis, Aksumite merchants managed a flow of exotic goods that were in high demand across the ancient world. They exported ivory, tortoise shells, gold, and obsidian while importing silk, spices, and crafted goods from along the Silk Road. This wasn't just a local marketplace, it was a critical node in the circulatory system of international commerce. Their wealth was so immense that Aksum became one of the very first African civilizations to mint its own coins, a clear statement of its economic sovereignty and its ambition to be recognized on the world stage. The most visually stunning legacy of Aksum's power are the giant stelae, or obelisks, that still stand today in the city of Aksum. The largest of these, the Great Stele, would have stood over 33 meters tall and weighed an estimated 520 tons, making it one of the largest single pieces of stone ever quarried and erected in the ancient world. These were not simple markers. They were intricately carved to resemble multi-story buildings, complete with false doors and windows, believed to be markers for the tombs of their powerful kings. The engineering feat required to carve, transport, and raise these monolithic structures is staggering and speaks volumes about the kingdom's organizational capacity. Yet, despite its immense wealth, its international importance, and its monumental architectural achievements, Aksum remains a mystery in many ways. How did this kingdom manage to centralize power so effectively in the rugged Ethiopian highlands? What precise engineering techniques did they use to erect their colossal stelae? a feat that would challenge engineers even today. And perhaps most tantalizingly, Aksum is also entwined with one of history's greatest legends. It is said to be the final resting place of the Ark of the Covenant. This connection adds another layer of profound mystery to a kingdom that was already one of the ancient world's most impressive, yet forgotten, superpowers. The story of Aksum takes a fascinating turn in the 4th century, with the conversion of its ruler, King Ezana, to Christianity. This decision made Aksum one of the first Christian kingdoms in the world, establishing a religious tradition that has endured in Ethiopia to this day. This wasn't a minor cultural shift, it fundamentally realigned the kingdom's identity and its international relationships. Coins that once depicted the crescent and disc symbols of southern Arabian deities were now minted with the cross, broadcasting this new faith across their vast trading network. This early adoption of Christianity created a unique cultural fusion, blending ancient Aksumite traditions with new Christian theology. It is this deep Christian heritage that fuels the most famous legend associated with Aksum, that it is the home of the Ark of the Covenant. According to the Ethiopian epic, the Kebra Nagast, the Ark was brought to Ethiopia by Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The legend states that the sacred chest, containing the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, was brought to Aksum and is now housed in a small, unassuming chapel, the Chapel of the Tablet, next to the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. No one is allowed to see it except for a single guardian monk who is chosen for life to protect the relic. Whether the story of the Ark is historical fact or a foundational myth, its cultural importance to Ethiopia and the legacy of Aksum is immense. It transforms the kingdom from a mere historical entity into a place of living, breathing, sacred tradition. The claim has fascinated historians, archaeologists, and adventurers for centuries, adding a layer of mystique that few other ancient sites can claim. The absolute secrecy surrounding the alleged relic makes it impossible to verify, but the belief itself has shaped the identity of a nation for well over 1,000 years, a direct and powerful echo of Aksum's ancient spiritual significance. So what happened to this great kingdom? By the Aksum's fortunes began to decline. The rise of Islamic empires in the Arabian Peninsula shifted the major trade routes, isolating Aksum from its primary sources of wealth. The once bustling port of Adulis was destroyed, and the kingdom was forced to retreat further into the interior highlands. Compounded by climate change and soil degradation from overfarming, the economic foundation of Aksum crumbled. The kingdom didn't vanish overnight but slowly faded, its power waning until it was eventually succeeded by other dynasties, leaving behind its giant stelae and the enduring legend of the Ark as silent witnesses to its former glory. In 1986, workers digging clay for a brickyard in Sichuan Province, China, made a discovery that would send shockwaves through the world of archaeology and completely rewrite the early history of Chinese civilization. They stumbled upon 2 large sacrificial pits filled not with the familiar pottery and jade of the Shang dynasty, but with something entirely different. What they unearthed was a treasure trove of artifacts belonging to a previously unknown Bronze Age culture, now called Sanqingdui. This wasn't just a minor variation of known cultures, it was a distinct, highly sophisticated civilization that had been utterly lost to history for over 3,000 years. The artifacts themselves are what make Sanqingdui so profoundly strange and captivating. Among the finds were over 80 bronze masks, some covered in gold leaf. But these are not human portraits. They are stylized, almost alien-like, with exaggerated features, enormous protruding eyes, vast, blade-like ears, and enigmatic smiles. Some masks are colossal, with one of the largest standing over 1.3 meters wide. These otherworldly faces are unlike anything else found in ancient China, or indeed the rest of the world. They suggest a completely separate artistic and religious tradition, one that developed in isolation from the cultures of the Yellow River Valley, which were long considered the sole cradle of Chinese civilization. The sheer scale and technical skill of the bronze work is breathtaking. The Sanqingdui artisans were masters of a complex casting technique that allowed them to create these large, intricate pieces. Alongside the masks, archaeologists found a life-sized bronze statue of a standing figure, nearly 2.6 meters tall, including its base, which is one of the largest intact bronze figures from the ancient world. They also discovered magnificent bronze spirit trees, towering branching structures decorated with birds and dragons, which are thought to be representations of a cosmic tree connecting heaven and earth. These were not the products of a minor tribe, but of a major, organized and wealthy state. The most baffling part of the Sansingdui discovery is the complete lack of any written records. We don't know what these people called themselves, what language they spoke, or what their bizarre masks and statues were for. Were they representations of gods, ancestors, or mythical kings? Were they worn in rituals, or were they purely symbolic objects of worship? The pits themselves appear to be sites of a massive, deliberate ritual of destruction. The objects were intentionally broken or burned before being buried. It seems as though the Sansingdui people, for reasons we may never understand, decided to ritually destroy and bury their most sacred objects, effectively erasing their own culture. The discovery of Sansingdui didn't just add a new name to the list of ancient cultures, it fundamentally challenged the traditional narrative of Chinese history. For decades it was believed that Chinese civilization originated and spread outwards from a single source, the Shang dynasty in the Central Plains along the Yellow River. Sansingdui, located over 1,000 kilometers away in the fertile Sichuan basin, proved that this monocentric model was wrong. It was evidence of a parallel, highly advanced civilization that was at the very least a contemporary of the Shang, and in many ways, its artistic and technological equal. This has led to a major re-evaluation of how early China developed. It suggests a far more complex picture, with multiple independent centers of innovation and culture existing simultaneously. The Sansingdui culture is now believed to be the capital of the ancient Shu kingdom, a state mentioned in later historical records but often dismissed as legendary. The artifacts provide dramatic proof that the Shu kingdom was not only real but was a major regional power with a unique and powerful identity. This revelation has forced historians to look at early China not as a single, linear story, but as a mosaic of different interacting cultures. The question of why the civilization disappeared is as mysterious as its art. Around 1200 BCE, the city seems to have been abruptly abandoned. There are no signs of invasion or widespread destruction, beyond the ritual burial pits. One theory suggests a massive earthquake may have altered the course of the Minjiang River, devastating the city's agricultural base and forcing its inhabitants to relocate. Another possibility is internal conflict or a political upheaval that led to the capital being moved. Whatever the cause, the people of Sansingdui seem to have packed up and left, taking their knowledge and their writing system with them. The final act of the Sansingdui people, the ritual destruction of their most precious bronze creations, remains the most profound enigma. Why would a culture go to such lengths to bury its own legacy? Was it a final desperate sacrifice to angry gods in the face of a natural disaster? Or was it a symbolic act to mark the end of an era as they moved to a new capital? A way of preventing the sacred power of the objects from falling into the wrong hands? Without any written text to guide us, we are left only with speculation, staring into the giant bronze eyes of their masks at a civilization that was brilliant, strange, and for a reason we cannot fathom, chose to vanish. Right, let's head over to South America, specifically to the arid coastal valleys of modern-day Peru. Here, at roughly the same time that the Great Pyramids were being built in Egypt, something equally remarkable was happening. This wasn't a civilization of grand armies, written languages, or elaborate pottery, things we often associate with ancient superpowers. Instead, it was a society built on a completely different model, one that has puzzled archaeologists for decades. This is the story of the Norte Chico civilization, or as it's more formally known, the Caral Supe civilization. It's a contender for the oldest civilization in the Americas, and its quiet, unassuming ruins hide a story that fundamentally challenges our ideas about what it takes to build a society from the ground up. Think about the ingredients for civilization. You'd probably list things like agriculture, maybe some form of writing, a centralized government, and perhaps some impressive architecture. The Norte Chico had some of these, but not all, and the ones they did have were different. For over 1,000 years, from roughly 3500 BCE to 1800 BCE, they flourished in this network of more than 24 major sites. They built monumental structures including massive earthen platform mounds and sunken circular plazas, all without the wheel, without metal tools, and seemingly without any evidence of warfare. It's a bit of a historical anomaly, a quiet giant that existed for a millennium before vanishing, leaving behind more questions than answers for us to ponder. The heart of this civilization was the city of Caral, a sprawling urban center in the Supe Valley. This wasn't just a random collection of huts, it was a masterclass in urban planning. The layout is deliberate, with 6 large platform mounds, sometimes called pyramids, arranged around a huge central public space. These structures weren't tombs for powerful pharaohs, they appear to have been public ceremonial centers. Imagine standing in one of the sunken circular plazas, a feature unique to this culture, designed for communal gatherings. It suggests a society built not on the orders of a single king, but on collective effort and shared belief systems. They were bringing people together, not through force but through shared ritual and purpose. What's truly fascinating is what they didn't have. Archaeologists have scoured these sites and found a conspicuous lack of defensive structures. No walls, no fortresses, no watchtowers. They've also found very few weapons. On top of that, there's a complete absence of pottery. Think about that. Nearly every other major civilization is defined, in part, by its ceramics. The Norte Chico people used gourds and woven baskets instead. It paints a picture of a remarkably peaceful, stable society that focused its energy on agriculture, maritime trade, and large-scale construction projects that served the entire community. It was a civilization built on cooperation, not conflict, on music and ceremony, not conquest. So how did they pull it off? How do you build a complex society without the usual technological toolkit? The answer appears to lie in a very clever economic model based on 2 key resources: cotton and fish. Inland, in the river valleys, the Norte Chico people grew cotton on a massive scale, along with gourds and other crops, using sophisticated irrigation canals to water the arid land. This wasn't just for clothing. The cotton was a crucial trade commodity. They would weave this cotton into vast, durable fishing nets, an incredibly valuable technology for the time. It was a specialized industry, requiring skill, organization, and a lot of raw material. These nets were then traded with the communities living along the Pacific coast, just a few dozen kilometers away. In return for the cotton nets, the coastal people provided a vast and reliable supply of protein in the form of anchovies and sardines. This maritime agricultural exchange was the engine of the entire civilization. It was a brilliant, symbiotic relationship that fueled population growth and allowed for the specialization of labor. Some people farmed cotton, others wove nets, others fished, and some presumably were free to become the architects and engineers who designed and organized the construction of places like Corral. This economic interdependence was the glue holding their society together. This model also helps explain their peaceful nature. The inland and coastal communities were not rivals. They were essential partners in a shared economic system. Conflict would have disrupted the very foundation of their prosperity. Instead of building walls, they built trade networks. Instead of forging swords, they wove nets. Their power wasn't based on military might but on economic influence and the ability to manage complex, large-scale resource exchange. This challenges the old idea that coercion and warfare are necessary drivers for the development of early states. The Norte Chico offer a compelling alternative. A civilization founded on mutual benefit and intricate supply chains, and then, around 1800 BCE, it all just ends. The great cities like Corral were abandoned. There's no evidence of a violent overthrow or a catastrophic war. The current thinking points towards environmental factors. A major earthquake, a prolonged drought, or perhaps the slow and steady encroachment of sand dunes could have disrupted their delicate irrigation systems. This would have crippled their cotton production, breaking the economic chain that held their society together. Without the cotton, there were no nets. Without the nets, there was no reliable food from the coast. The people likely dispersed into smaller, more self-sufficient groups, and the great cradle of American civilization quietly faded back into the desert landscape. Right, let's head to a part of the world you might think you know, Eastern Europe. Specifically, what is now modern-day Ukraine, Romania, and Moldova. Between about 5500 and 2750 BCE, long before the pyramids of Giza were even a blueprint, this region was home to a truly remarkable group of people, the Cucuteni Tripilia culture. Now, calling them a culture is a bit of an understatement. These weren't just scattered tribes, they built some of the largest settlements in Neolithic Europe, sprawling proto-cities that could house up to 40,000 people. That is an astonishing population density for the time, rivaling and even exceeding contemporary settlements in Mesopotamia, the so-called cradle of civilization. These weren't cities in the way we think of them today, with stone walls and grand temples. Instead, they were vast, circular arrangements of wattle and daub houses, meticulously planned and laid out in concentric rings. Imagine looking down on one of these settlements from above. a huge, swirling pattern of hundreds, even thousands of homes, spreading out from a central point. The sheer scale and organization required to build and maintain such a place is staggering. It points to a level of social cohesion and central planning that archaeologists are still trying to fully comprehend. How did they coordinate this? What kind of leadership structure was in place? The Silent Earth offers few direct answers. One of the most defining features of the Cucuteni Tripilia people was their pottery. And this isn't just a few broken shards we're talking about. They were master ceramicists, producing vast quantities of incredibly intricate and beautiful pottery, decorated with swirling, flowing patterns of red, black and white. Each piece is a work of art with complex spirals, waves, and geometric motifs that seem to pulse with energy. This wasn't just for utilitarian purposes. The sheer artistry suggests it held deep cultural and perhaps even spiritual significance. It's through these vibrant ceramics that we get our most intimate glimpse into their symbolic world, a world otherwise lost to time. But here is where things get really strange. Every 60 to 80 years, the people of the Cucuteni Tripilia culture would deliberately, methodically, and completely burn their entire settlement to the ground. They would gather their belongings, evacuate the city, and set it ablaze. This wasn't an act of war or a tragic accident. The evidence shows it was a planned, ritualistic event. After the inferno, they would sometimes build a new settlement right on top of the old one's ashes, or move a short distance away to start again. This cycle of construction and destruction is one of the greatest enigmas of European prehistory. Why would you destroy your own home? The question of why the Cucuteni Tripilia people burned their own cities is a puzzle that has fascinated and baffled archaeologists for decades. There are, of course, several theories. One idea is that it was a form of sanitation. Perhaps after several generations, the wooden structures became infested with pests, or the accumulation of waste made the location unhealthy. Burning everything down would have been a brutally effective, if extreme, way of sterilizing the site and starting fresh. It's a practical explanation, but it feels incomplete, lacking the sense of ceremony that the evidence suggests was involved in these conflagrations. Another theory, a more spiritual one, is that the burning was a ritual act. Perhaps it was seen as a way of killing the house, transferring its life force to the next generation of buildings. In this view, the house was a living entity, with a birth, a life, and a deliberate ceremonial death. The fire would have been a spectacular and transformative event, a way to mark the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. This idea connects the physical act of burning with the worldview of the people themselves, suggesting a deep, cyclical understanding of life and death, creation and destruction, applied even to their homes. A third possibility combines the practical with the symbolic. It suggests the burning was a way of honoring their ancestors. By burning the settlement, they were creating a new layer of earth over the old one, effectively burying the world of their parents and grandparents. Each new city was literally built upon the remains of the past, creating a physical connection to their lineage. The entire settlement would become a tell, an archaeological mound, not by accident over centuries of decay, but through deliberate, repeated acts of ritual destruction and renewal. The landscape itself would become a testament to their history. Ultimately, we just don't know for sure. The Cucuteni Tripilia people left behind no written records, no Rosetta Stone to decipher their motivations. All we have are the silent ruins and the scorched earth. They were a society that could build cities larger than any in their world, create art of breathtaking beauty, and then, on a regular schedule, consign it all to the flames. They flourished for nearly 3,000 years, a testament to their success, before they eventually faded away, their culture absorbed by incoming groups. They are a powerful reminder that a society can be incredibly complex and successful, and still leave behind a central mystery we may never solve. Now, for our final stop, we travel to the dusty plains of modern-day Pakistan to a place called the Kachi Plain. It's a harsh, arid environment, but right here at the foot of the Bolan Pass lies the archaeological site of Mehrgarh. And Mehrgarh is, to put it mildly, astonishingly old. Excavations here have revealed a continuous history of human settlement that begins around 7,000 BCE. Let me just repeat that, 7,000 years before the Common Era. That makes Mehrgarh not just one of the earliest sites with evidence of farming and herding in South Asia, but one of the earliest in the entire world. When we think of early civilization, we often think of Mesopotamia or Egypt, but Mehrgarh predates the Great Pyramids by millennia. The earliest residents lived in simple mud brick houses, they cultivated barley and wheat, and they herded cattle, sheep, and goats. This wasn't a hunter-gatherer camp, This was the very beginning of the settled agricultural life that would eventually form the bedrock of all subsequent civilizations in the region. They were, in a very real sense, the pioneers who wrote the first chapter of settled life in this part of the world, experimenting with the plants and animals that would sustain empires thousands of years later. What's truly remarkable about Mehrgar is the sheer depth of the archaeological record. The site shows at least 7 distinct periods of occupation, stacked one on top of the other, creating a mound nearly 30 meters high. It's like a layer cake of human history. As you dig down, you are literally traveling back in time, from the more advanced ceramic periods at the top, down through layers showing the first experiments with pottery, and further down still to the Aceramic, or pre-pottery Neolithic period at the very bottom. This provides an unparalleled, continuous timeline of technological and cultural development over several thousand years. In these earliest layers, archaeologists have found some truly incredible things. They've discovered evidence of sophisticated craftsmanship long before it was thought to exist here. This includes stone tools, intricate beadwork made from seashells, turquoise, and lapis lazuli, materials that had to be imported from hundreds, even thousands of kilometers away. This tells us that even in 7000 BCE, Mehrgar was not an isolated village. It was part of a vast, ancient network of trade and exchange, connecting the people of the Indus Valley with distant cultures in Afghanistan, the Persian Gulf, and beyond. This place was a thriving hub from the very beginning. The discoveries at Mehrgar don't just tell us about a single ancient city, they fundamentally reshape one of the world's great ancient civilizations, the Indus Valley Civilization. For a long time, the origins of the great Indus cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were a mystery. They seem to appear on the scene around 2500 BCE, fully formed with their planned streets, advanced sanitation, and undeciphered script. Where did all that knowledge and organization come from? Well, a large part of the answer appears to be right here, in Mehrgar. Mehrgar is now widely considered to be a precursor, an ancestor, to the Indus Valley Civilization. The long, slow development we see in its archaeological layers, the gradual improvement of farming techniques, the increasing sophistication of crafts, the growth of trade networks, the development of architectural forms, looks very much like the foundation upon which the later Indus cities were built. It wasn't a sudden explosion of civilization, it was a long, slow burn that began at places like Mehrgar, thousands of years earlier. It's the deep roots from which a mighty tree would later grow. The evidence for this connection is compelling. The types of crops grown, the animals domesticated, the style of mud brick architecture, and even some of the artistic motifs found on early pottery at Mehrgar show clear continuity with what we find later in the great Indus cities. They also found small terracotta human and animal figurines, which are very similar to those found in abundance at Harappan sites. It's as if we are watching the rehearsal before the main performance. The cultural DNA of the Indus Valley Civilization seems to have been first encoded right here on the Kachi Plain. And perhaps most tantalizingly, archaeologists at Mehrgar have found evidence of early dentistry. In a graveyard dating back between 7,500 and 9,000 years, several skeletons were found with holes drilled into their molars. These weren't for decoration, they show signs of being performed on living people, likely to treat tooth decay. This is, by far, the earliest evidence of dentistry ever found. It shows a level of medical knowledge that is simply astounding for this period. Mehrgar wasn't just a cradle of agriculture and trade, but a place of incredible innovation, a true Neolithic metropolis whose legacy echoed through the millennia, helping to shape one of the most enigmatic civilizations of the ancient world. So, from the highlands of Africa to the coast of Peru, from the plains of Pakistan to the river valleys of Eastern Europe, history is full of the ghosts of forgotten empires and cultures. The stories we've looked at today, the Kingdom of Aksum, the Sangsingdui, the Norte Chico, the Cucuteni Tripilia, and Mehrgar, are more than just historical footnotes. They prove that the grand, sweeping story of our past is so much richer, so much more complex, and frankly so much weirder than the version we often get taught. They were innovators, builders, artists, and traders, who are only now, slowly, stepping out from the shadows of history. These civilizations challenge our very idea of what civilization means. They show us that there isn't one single path to complexity, not one neat timeline leading from hunter-gatherers to the world we know today. There were many paths, many experiments in living together, many different ways of organizing a society, creating art, and understanding the world. Some built with stone, others with mud brick. Some wrote things down, others passed their knowledge through ritual and tradition, and many, like the Cucuteni Trapilia, made choices that are still to us profoundly and beautifully mysterious. What all of this really is a powerful and humbling reminder that there are still so many secrets buried right under our feet. For every Rome or Athens that we know so much about, there are countless other stories waiting to be unearthed. The history we know is just a fraction of the history that happened. Every new archaeological dig has the potential to rewrite the textbooks, to introduce us to a new cast of ancient characters, and to add another intricate piece to the vast, sprawling puzzle of the human journey. The past isn't dead, it's not even past, it's just waiting. Which is a great question to end on. Which one of these civilizations blew your mind the most? Was it the incredible age and innovation of Mergar, the mysterious mask makers of Sanxingdui, the peaceful pyramid builders of Norte Chico, the ritualistic city burners of the Cucuteni Trapilia, or the trading prowess of Axum? Each one offers a different window into a lost world. Let us know which one captured your imagination in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this trip into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another exploration into the past. Thanks for watching.